Hi people! Today we are starting a brand new unit, super exciting. It's called Home Finance. It is the second part of our finance topic. So we did vehicle finance, now we're doing home finance. And we're talking about stuff like getting a mortgage and property taxes and super duper fun stuff like that. I say super duper fun a little sarcastically, but honestly, super helpful. You should know about these things. A lot of people who own houses or are looking to buy houses are woefully ignorant, as in they don't understand what any of these things mean. They just go to the bank and they say, hey, I want to buy a house, and then that's it, and they don't really understand stuff. I am a math teacher. I recognize that, and this is something that's interesting to me. But my husband and I bought a house about a year ago now, and the mortgage lady, the bank lady, made a mistake on what she was doing for us. She told me one thing and then she did something else. And it took me a while to realize it, but when I finally figured it out, I was really upset because it ended up costing us like thousands of dollars more. So I went back to the bank and I said, whoa, you made a mistake here. And they eventually fixed it, and we saved like a few $1,000s. And I love saving money. Maybe I'm cheap, but I'm just thinking like $1,000, $3,000. I could buy a lot of stuff with $3,000. I could go on vacation for that. I could just buy some new appliances for my house. Like, I can do a lot of stuff with that money. So this is really, really important because most people, hopefully, at some point in your life, you're going to live in a home, hopefully, and maybe you buy your own home. Maybe you buy it with a spouse or a partner or a friend, or maybe with your parents because, you live with your parents, something like that. I don't know, but you should be informed on one of the most expensive decisions you're going to make. So that's why we talk about it here. This is super helpful for other people to know as well, and sometimes people don't get a chance to learn about this stuff, and that's really too bad, I think. So anyway, here we go. Here's some terms. Now our goal here is to not make you like a mortgage savant where you can like whip off, how much is my mortgage going to be? No, it's just so that you can ask the right questions when you go. And when you can see if things add up the right way or if they don't. Or if you're like, that doesn't make sense. Or, oh, that makes total sense. That's kind of what I was expecting. And then when you go to buy a house, you can pick out a house that's a reasonable house for you that you can afford. Because you never want to buy something you can't afford and then go through the whole thing of maybe getting kicked out. That would not be ideal. Okay, so here's some terms. Here's the first one, amortization period. Now that's a big word and it's kind of a weird word. Basically, it's the length of time in years that you'll need to pay off a mortgage. So first things first, maybe we'll start here. Mortgage is a loan for a house. So it's just a loan. Whenever we say mortgage, it's just a loan. That's all it is. Obviously, I don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting in my bank ready to be spent, so I need to go to the bank and get a loan for it. Okay, so amortization period is how long is it going to take you to pay off that loan or that mortgage? Typically, 20, 25, maybe even 30 years. I think 25 is usually like the go-to number. This just happens to be, like a pretty common number. So typically most people take 25 years to pay that off. Now, what we do is we go to the bank or credit union or whoever else, a broker perhaps, and you say, I would like to buy this house. I want to pay it off over 25 years, and the bank will kind of negotiate with you. And they'll say, let's set up a term where we negotiate for, let's say, 5 years. Because the bank doesn't know what's going to happen in 25 years. They don't know what the interest rate's going to be like in 25 years. So they say, let's put up some terms to figure out for 5 years. And at the end of the 5 years, you go back to the bank and you renegotiate. And you maybe set it up for another 5 years. And you do this every 5 years. It gives both you and the bank a chance to renegotiate, a chance to look at your life and see how it's changed and what's going to work for you now, what's not going to work for you now. So we amortize it, we pay it off over 25 years, but that 25 years is broken up into chunks, okay? So that's why when you drive past a bank and it says mortgage rates at this percent for 3 years, you're not paying off the whole house over 3 years. That's crazy. That'd be nuts. You're paying off over 25 years. It's just broken up into chunks. Okay, done with that. Equity. Equity is a beautiful word that I love. The portion of the value of the property that you own or you have paid for. Now, when you buy a house, legally, you own the whole thing. It is your house, but the bank kind of has a stake in it, right? Because the bank has given you a bunch of money to help pay for that. So how much money you have paid so far, how much, like if you were to sell the house, how much would you get back? That is your equity. So you don't really have equity of the whole house just yet, right? Interest. It is a finance charge. How much extra you have to pay to borrow the money. So let's say I want to buy a house for $200,000. That's around what my first house cost, a little house just for me. If I paid back the whole thing, I'd have to pay back more than $200,000 because the bank isn't really your friend. They want to make money off of you. So when they do you a favor, like loan you money, they expect you to pay them back just a little bit more. And it's honestly more than just a little bit. It's quite a bit of money. Because you're borrowing so much, you have to pay back quite a bit in interest. So in this case, interest is kind of a negative thing because it's more money I have to pay back to them. Principal. Principal is the amount borrowed. So if I borrow $200,000 to buy this house, that is my principal. It's also called the mortgage amount, like how much of a loan do I need? So principal is how much loan you're getting. Unpaid balance, the portion of the property owed. Like how much do I still owe them? So if today I sign those mortgage papers for $200,000, today I owe them $200,000. That would be unpaid. Maybe next year I only owe them $190 because I paid, some money on my mortgage. Now the unpaid would be $190. So over time that should be going down and down and down and down until eventually you don't owe anything. Let's throw some tiny little formulas on here. This is really good to have on your study sheet because I find some people, this is a lot of terms to throw around, you know what I mean? Like it's a lot. First things first, monthly payment equals when you pay on your mortgage. Most people do it monthly. Some people, I do it bi-weekly. We can talk about that later, what choice you want to make. But part of it goes towards the principal and part of it goes towards interest. So every payment you make is broken up into those two parts. You don't see the two parts, you just pay your mortgage and then that's it. But if you looked on every 6 months or every year, you get a statement and it tells you how much interest you paid and how much of the principal you paid. And that's important because I want to pay back this loan. I don't really want to pay interest. So I want to see this interest amount go down. So every payment you make is part principal payment and part interest. Okay, so a little bit of both. I want it to be mostly principal because then it's me paying off my loan, but they want it to be mostly interest because that means I'm paying them more money. Alrighty, here's another one. New equity. Now we haven't really talked about these things yet. I'm just trying to prep us for our topic tomorrow because our topic tomorrow is a difficult one. So new equity is our previous equity. We'll just write this down and then we'll talk about it. Our previous equity plus our principal payment. Remember, equity is how much of the house you've already paid for, or how much you own of it. So if I have, I've only paid $20,000 on my mortgage, and then I pay $1,000 more. Well, now I own $21,000. So I add them together because this is something that should be growing over time, where I own more and more of the house until eventually I own the whole thing when I pay it off. Okay, next. New unpaid balance. Whoops, I didn't spell that right. This is how much I owe, and hopefully that'll go down over time. So we're going to subtract this one So this is previous unpaid balance minus principal payment. Because every time I make a payment towards my mortgage, I'm going to owe them just a little bit less. So if I owed $190,000 and then I made a $1,000 payment, I would now owe them $189,000. So this one should be going down because it's how much I owe. This one should be going up because it's how much I own or how much I've already paid. Let's try these tiny little questions right here, and then we'll talk about some types of mortgages. You buy a house worth $200,000 and you make a payment of $20,000. P.S. I know in a lot of families it's rude to talk about money, and you're not just going to go right up to a random person and be like, hey, how much you buy your house for? That would be rude. But I think you should talk to your parents about this and say, how much did you buy this house for? How much do you think is worth now? How much did you have for a down payment? How much do you still owe? You should ask these type of questions because they can help you make decisions for the future. If your parents rent their place or their apartment or their house that you're living in, ask them, how much is rent? How much do we pay for things like water and electricity? Like, do we pay for that, or is that included? Good things to know, so that way you have an idea of how much things cost for the future. So it might be rude, but you say, Mom, I'm trying to learn. I'm almost an adult. I might be moving out, in the next little while, next couple years maybe. Good things to know. You gotta learn, okay? So you buy a house worth $200,000. So that's how much you have to pay to buy the house. And you make a down payment of $20,000. Reminder, a down payment, we talked about this in vehicle finance, is a payment you make at the beginning. A payment you make at the beginning. Now, this down payment serves a couple of reasons. One, it's a way of telling the bank and telling the people that you're buying this house from that you're good for the rest of it. You have to have this money in cash in your bank account ready to go before the bank will give you a loan for the rest. This cannot be credit cards, it cannot be other loans, it can't be anything else. It's got to be like cash sitting there. And then when you go to the bank, they'll give you a special type of check, or they'll just transfer it over to the other bank for you. Okay, so it's a down payment, is a payment you make right at the beginning. So I don't need to get a loan for $200,000 because I already had $20,000. So to find my mortgage, I'm going to go $200,000 minus $20,000, which will give me $180,000. Because I don't need a mortgage for the whole thing because I already had some of it in cash, right? So I only need a mortgage for this amount. What is your equity in the property? How much have we paid so far? Well, we've only paid one payment of $20,000, so that's it. It's pretty easy right at the beginning here. And what is our unpaid balance? How much do we still owe them? Well, we still owe them $180 because, again, we're just starting off here. Okay, so how much do you own? How much do you owe? And that's that. Alrighty. Let's talk about some types of mortgages, and then we'll do a couple quick calculations, and then that'll be it for our first day in home finance. Okay. So I'm going to write extra stuff in this area and down here, just so my writing's pretty bad, so just so I can spread out a little bit more. Okay. So you got some choices when you go for your mortgage, and you certainly don't have to have all this stuff memorized. You can definitely ask the bank person or the credit union person some questions. They will answer your questions as honestly as they can. They'll answer it honestly, but you need to have a general idea before you go in as to what things are so that you can ask the right questions, right? So here's one choice you can make: a closed or an open mortgage. A closed mortgage is a mortgage which doesn't allow extra payments on the principal. Yeah, I should say extra in here. Extra payments, because you got to pay payments on the principal. You got to pay it, but you're not allowed extra payments. On the other side, an open mortgage is a mortgage that does allow additional payments on the principal. So it depends on what your situation is like. Personally, I like open mortgages because let's say I get like a really big bonus at work. Teachers don't really get bonuses, but maybe my husband could. Let's say he gets a really big bonus and he's like, whoa, we could save this, or we could just put it on our mortgage, or, we can make a big payment on there and then we won't owe so much in interest, in the future. So if I ever have some extra cash, I could put it on my mortgage and then it would take me less time to pay that off. A closed mortgage does not allow you to make extra payments. So it's not ideal in that way, because let's say I started a new job and I make way more money, then I'm like, oh shoot, I could totally be putting more money on the mortgage. Let's throw some more on there. They don't allow that. Now, usually an open mortgage, there's rules about how much money you can how much more payments you can make. So it's not just like unlimited, but it depends. So you should ask about it and ask what kind of options you got. Now, a closed mortgage sometimes has lower interest rates because they don't allow you to do that. So sometimes they try to make them a little bit more alluring by giving you a slightly lower interest rate. So sometimes has lower interest rates. Now, that's not always true, but now the thing is, the bank wants you to pay this off over the longest period of time with the highest interest rate, right? They don't want you to make more payments, because when you do that, when you pay it off faster, when you make more payments, you end up giving them less interest, and they want more interest. So sometimes they try to get you to go for the closed mortgage, pay it off for longer, and they give you a slightly lower interest rate just to kind of lure you in there. Open, I know what's good about open is that you could potentially pay it off a little faster because you're making like some extra payments. So let's just write that down here. If you have enough money, no, you're never going to do this if you don't have enough money, right? Because you're not going to make payments on something and you're like can't afford groceries. That doesn't make sense. You can make extra payments. And what's good about that is you pay your loan off faster. Pay loan off faster. And it's nice to pay your loan off faster because then it's going to be quicker that you don't have a loan anymore. You don't have to pay these big payments all the time. And that means less interest. Okay, let's talk about the next ones. Here's your next choice: fixed rate or variable rate. So a fixed rate is where your rate does not change. With the interest rate is fixed. I'm just going to add that in here, that it won't change for a specific period of time. So usually a lot of people negotiate their mortgage for 5 years. So for 5 years, the interest rate will be exactly the same. It will not change. The other one is a variable rate mortgage, is where the interest rate may change from month to month. So the reason that it might change, for example, right now, there's a giant pandemic happening. There's a lot of economic problems happening at the moment. So the banks are allowing loans to happen at lower interest rates. So if I had a variable rate mortgage, my interest rate would be a little lower right now. And a little lower means I pay a little bit less every month. But then I don't know what's going to happen once this pandemic is done. Are the interest rates going to go back up and go back up higher than they were before? It might. I have no way of knowing really. So a lot of people go with fixed rate mortgages right now in this general time period, not pandemic times, because in general they're kind of going down over the years. You would pick a fixed rate if you think, right now they're going up. So we pick a fixed rate right now because interest rates are kind of going up over time right now. So I want to get locked in at the lower interest rate. If I pick the variable rate right now, not pandemic times, but just in general, and the interest rate goes up, well, my interest rate will kind of go up a little bit over time. So when I was last talking to the bank, the person said, yeah, I haven't really seen someone pick a variable rate in a long time because the trend is that the rates are going up. Now, if you are like a financial savant and you can see into the future a bit and you can figure out what's going to happen, you might pick variable rate because maybe you think it's going to go down over time. What's nice about the fixed rate though is that my mortgage will always be exactly the same. Like my mortgage payment will always be exactly the same. So every month, my mortgage is about $1,000 a month. I have to pay twice a month actually. I have to pay $1,000. That's it. Variable rate, it might be $900 one month. It might be $1,100 one month. I don't know exactly what it's going to be. So let's talk about some stuff for each of these. Fixed. We're going to pick this if you don't think the rate will go down. Because you like lock yourself into the lower rate. You think the rate's going to go up, so I'm locked in at it. That's usually how people do it. And maybe you pick it if you want the same payment in the future. Because on this one, your payment is always exactly the same. Like it doesn't change month to month. And that's nice for budgeting because I know exactly how much it's going to be next month. I'm not like, oh shoot, it's a little higher this month. I bought a big thing. Like I don't have enough money for this. That's not really a problem that I have. Variable. This is harder to predict. Like I don't really know what's going to happen next month in terms of interest rates. However, right now, pandemic times would be great to have a variable rate because my rate would have gone down for the months that we're in this craziness. We would probably pick this if we think the rate will go down in the future. You might have different payment amounts every month. Different payment every month. Every month it could change by just a little bit or it could change by a lot. It's hard to tell. It might end up saving you money, but it might end up costing you more money. It's a little bit more of a gamble, you know? Anyway, okay, so that's some of your choices you get to make. It's certainly worth a conversation with whoever you're getting your mortgage from. You can always ask them like, what's most common right now? Do you have any specials? Because it's a negotiation, so you always ask, are there any special rates out there right now? Can you do better than that? And you always go to more than one bank and you say, hey, I'd like to buy a mortgage. What's your rate at right now? What do you got? Because the less interest you pay, the less money you pay, and you can end up saving yourself a lot of money over time. Okie doke. So here we go. Find the monthly payment for a $75,000 mortgage for 25 years at 6.5%. Now, if this question looks familiar to you, good job, because it should, because this question is very, very similar to vehicle finance. So when we had this question in vehicle finance, it would have said a loan for however many years at whatever percent. And we're going to use the exact same formula. So monthly payment equals loan amount for your mortgage divided by 1,000 times from number from table. This is exactly the same from vehicle finance, which is handy because then it's the same tool. We already know how to do that. Okay, if I get a $75,000 mortgage, that's how much I'm borrowing. That is my loan amount. So $75,000 divided by 1,000. And then we need to pick the number from the table. Now, on your exam, they'll just give you the number. They won't even bother telling you the interest rate. They'll just say, oh, and the number is this. That's it. For us, for now, we're going to use the table, and it's at the back. And I actually have a lot of tables for you this time, like more than one here. There's a bunch of tables. I'm looking for the one that says amortization period of mortgage loan when it's paid monthly mortgage loan, somewhere on here. And then we have some choices, 5 years, 10, 15, 20, 25 years, because maybe if you're at the end of your mortgage, maybe you only have 5 years left, or maybe if you're at the beginning of your mortgage, you have 25 years left. It said 25 years, so we're in this column, and it said 6.75%. So 6.75% right here, go all the way across. My number is 6.85, I think. 6.85. So that's the number I get off the table here. That's the number I'm going to multiply by right here. And I can divide this first, or I can multiply and then divide, up to you. Same idea. And I didn't do this for myself in the before here. Times by 6.85. Let's see what I get. $513.75. Great idea to ask your parents, what is the mortgage payment on this house? Good to know. Then you have an idea of, I want the same type of house, or I want a bigger house or a smaller house. I wonder how much it'll be for me. Good idea to start thinking about. Notice we round to 2 decimal places and we put a $sign on there. So every month, if we have this mortgage, we have to pay this every single month. If we don't pay it, well, they'll fine us, and then eventually they'll take our house away. And that's not funny. I laugh, but it's not funny. Okay, let's try example 2 here. There's a couple parts. A couple purchased their home for $160,000. So that's how much they had to give to the other people. They made a down payment of $35,000, a payment right away of $35,000. If they negotiated a mortgage at 7.25% over 25 years, calculate the amount they would need to borrow for the mortgage. Okay. This thing costs $160, but we make it a payment of $35 right away. I don't need to borrow $160, right? Because I have some cash sitting for it. So we're going to subtract $160,000 minus $35,000. I really only need to borrow $125,000 because I had some cash sitting there waiting for it. Monthly mortgage payment. Okay, we're going to go mortgage, I'm just using a different word this time because, you know, it is a mortgage, divided by 1,000 times by number from chart. So I'm going to have to look at the chart again. So my mortgage, which I just did, which is kind of why we did that, divide by 1,000 times by, let's see, a number from the chart. I'm going to flip right to the back again here. I use this chart a lot. Let's see, they said it was over 25 years, so we're in this column again, 7.25% this time. So looking over, sometimes I use a ruler because then I find it easier to look at these numbers. 7.16, so that's the number I need there, times by 7.16. Okay, so I usually divide and then I multiply, but you could totally do it the other way. $, $895.00. So almost $900 for this mortgage. All right. The amount of interest they would pay over the life of the mortgage. Now this is a really awesome one because you're going to be shocked at how much it is. It's a buttload of money. I'm going to tell you that right away. Okay. So to do this, let's come up with another little formula. I want to know how much am I actually paying over the years compared to how much I would have paid if I just had cash for it. And you notice we did basically a very similar question in vehicle finance as well. So let's go total paid minus amount borrowed, and that's going to equal our interest. I don't know why I didn't put interest over there, but I kind of ran out of space and then I gave up on it. Okay, so let's figure out our total paid here. I'm going to pay $895 every month for 25 years. So total paid is going to be $895 times 12 months. So that would be for 1 year times 25 years. And then we're going to subtract. How much did we have to borrow for this? We had to borrow, that's our mortgage amount, $125,000. And that will equal our interest. I think I forgot an E in there. Okay, so I'm going to multiply this out here, and I wrote it down earlier, $268,500 minus that 125, $143,500 interest. Is that not bonkers? That's insane. I get a loan for $125,000. I have to pay back that $125,000 plus $143,000. I actually pay more in interest than I did on the mortgage. That's crazy. That's so much interest. Now, this is not a small interest rate, 7.25%. Right now it's around maybe 3.5%. So it's not small, but still, my God, that's a lot of money. Whew. So this is just interest over here. And that's why this is really, really important that we understand everything that we can about mortgages, because yes, this is a giant purchase, but also if there's any way for you to decrease how much interest you pay, let's say I could decrease this by $10,000. The bank is still getting tons of money, but $10,000, I can do a lot with $10,000, right? Whew. Okay, last one. This is not something we did on the last topic. It's a little weird. It's a good formula, just put on your study sheet. The amount of interest on the first payment. Now, amount of interest on each payment will actually be different. It'll go down over time because you pay the most interest at the beginning because you owe the most money. But this will be our formula. Mortgage times by rate divided by 12. Okay, so, oh man, I did this again. Interest, that will equal interest on first payment. I usually like to put that on the left, but whatever, it's fine. So our mortgage was $125,000. Our rate was 7.25%, but I have to change it to a decimal. So I move the decimal to the left 2 places. So 0.0725. Gotta make sure I have that little 0 in there. And we'll divide by 12. And so that will equal $755.21. Now I want you to think about that for a second. Your mortgage payment was almost $900, and $750 of it goes towards interest. Most of what you're paying is just going toward profit for the bank. You're not paying off your loan really, you're paying off mostly just interest. That's crazy. So most of your first payment goes towards interest. Over time, less and less of it will go towards interest until, when you're at the very end, it'll be like 90% principal payment and only 10% interest payment, but it takes a long time to get there. Alrighty, so please try some of the practice questions and have a good night.